That Movie Nut here with a review for Alice in Wonderland, the 2010 Tim Burton movie starring Johnny Depp, Helena Bonham Carter, Mia Wasikowska, Crispin Glover, and Stephen Fry. Set roughly about 10 or 12 years after the original stories by Lewis Carrol, Alice is now a 20-year-old who is about to be married to a rather stuffy English lord. However, as before, she ends up following a white rabbit, goes down a rabbit hole and enters the magical world of Wonderland. Only this time, it's called Underland, and it's currently under the tyrannical rule of the Red Queen with the help of her pet monster, the Jabberwocky. And Alice must embark on a journey where she must help the people of Wonderland, including old favorites like Mad Hatter and Cheshire Cat, liberate the land from the tyrannical rule. Now, the first thing to talk about, of course, is what does everyone else talk about? The visuals. Once again, Tim Burton provides us a dark, gothic, strange world, but also one that's very colourful at the same time, clashing the dark, twisty forests with the bright and vivid colours of things like the palaces, the mushrooms, and many other little articles, such as the characters' clothing, are all very bright amidst the sort of darker surrounding. The acting, of course, is pretty strong overall, with Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter being the highlights. Johnny Depp, to some people, I personally would have preferred Tim Curry, but that's just me. He achieves what the character has to be. He is mad and frequently switches in and out of a Scottish and a sort of Englishy, Irishy accent, which kind of makes sense because, he's mad. He can basically talk however he wants. He could even do an Indian accent if he wanted to. However, he does capture a lot of mannerisms which you might recognize from things like Edward Scissorhands and Jack Sparrow. The Red Queen, played by Helena Bonham Carter, is, of course, as I said, a show stealer here. She's every bit as wild, crazy, eccentric, and just childish as the one from the other Disney version. In fact, she is very much the live-action version of the character, only instead of being fat, she has a massive head. Alice, played by Mia Wasikowska, is okay. She delivers emotion when she has to, and she's not the worst actress I've ever seen, but throughout most of the movie, as you probably guessed from the trailers, she is pretty bland. She's not a very expressive actress. The rest of the cast is filled with various notables such as Stephen Fry as the Cheshire Cat, Alan Rickman as the Caterpillar, Michael Sheen as the White Rabbit, and Matt Lucas as Tweedledum and Tweedledee, who all do very good jobs with their roles, and they do put across character past the CG, which, as I said, looks beautiful. But the music, on the other hand, I'm sorry to say, but this is not Danny Elfman's best work. It's not the worst music I've ever heard, but unfortunately it's a very repetitive soundtrack with the same sort of very strange instruments and the same choir theme being used repeatedly throughout the movie. It's common for movies to have recurring themes, but this one I think overdid it a bit, and it's not really that impressive. I'm not going to play a clip now, but I suggest you listen for it yourself because it's very much a taste thing. And now for the script. This is the one that I think everybody raises whenever this movie is brought into question. The script. Yes, it's true. This is ripping off Lord of the Rings, okay? It's no secret. I mean, the trailer basically says it all as well. So I'm not spoiling much here. But to be fair, it doesn't kill the movie. It's not as bad as Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, where there are literally multiple stories going on at the same time, but there's virtually no resolution for any of them. But it is a very basic story, and that's more down to the writer not trying to find something to ground a story, which in many senses isn't supposed to make sense, and try to make sense of it. And unfortunately, using this basic story that we've seen in a dozen other swords and sorcery movies, we unfortunately know what's going to happen. The movie is very predictable at points. There are points where you're like, what could happen next? But those are very few and far between. For the most part, you can guess what's coming. But it's not something that completely ruins the film. I think that, personally, it's a taste thing. It depends on how you like whether or not you like Alice in Wonderland, because there are some people who adore the movies and books for making no sense, and there are people who hate them for that reason. Here, it's more straightforward, and in many ways, that's both the strength and weakness of the movie, because it means that you can follow it and you don't have to deal with very random and annoying things. Like, I always thought that the whole tea pie scene in the previous versions were very annoying and tedious, and here, thankfully, it's not. But that being said, it does sacrifice a lot of whimsical moments from the books, though, as I said, this is a sequel, not an adaptation, so I guess it can be forgiven for that, but regardless, it's a taste thing. Depends on whether or not you like the idea or if you despise it. So, in conclusion, I give Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland a bronze star. This is very much this generation's Hook. This will either be a movie that you will either love or hate. You will either love it for its visuals and acting, or you will hate it for the fact that it tries to bring logic into a story which shouldn't, at least according to some people, have any logic. Me personally, I like it. It's not the worst fantasy film I've ever seen, and I definitely would say if you have kids, you can watch this together and have a fun time. However, if you're a purist, I suggest sticking with the previous versions.